Hello. In this video we're going to be going over making new AI and assigning a new phone number to them in the cell phone pack. Don't pay attention to the upper body of the character kind of moving funny. That's something I'm working on for the camera, and it's going to only be activated when you're in camera mode, so it won't always be doing that. And now the body's going to always be facing the camera, so you won't be able to turn around and face your character. And you'll be able to move the camera up and down, side to side. So I'll give it a little more control there. So right now, there is not currently a contact list. That's something I will probably also be adding in here though. But there is this app called Mannequin Meter. It's got some stuff set up that makes it so you have to actually be in range of this Wi-Fi box here to be able to use it. If you're out of range, it'll just tell you that you don't have Wi-Fi and you can't use it. And it holds the Mannequin Man's phone number, Mannequin Woman. It's just kind of like a fake little dating app thing, just for an example of something you can make with it. So that kind of works as a contact list for now. If you click one of these, it types in the number for you, and you can call them. So we're going to go ahead and go over creating a new AI and just changing their dialogue up a little bit. We're not going to go too far into the dialogue because it can take a while to set it up, especially if you have no clue what you're going to put on there. And I do not have any clue what I would put on there right now. But we'll explain it so that people can understand how to do it at least. So if you go into the cell phone folder and go into the blueprints folder and the character folder, there's an AI folder here with the base AI and the two example AI that I set up, the Mannequin Man and Mannequin Woman. To create a new AI, you just want to either duplicate one of these or create a child of the base AI. And there's literally nothing in here. The only thing different in them is that the phone number's changed. So we're just going to create a child of the base AI. So just right click, create child blueprint class. We call this one BP Mannequin Text. Okay, so when you open up the new AI blueprint, you'll see in the class defaults, you can check if they're available to call or not. If that's unchecked, then they're not going to have a phone number. Whatever number is here, if there is a number there, it's not going to matter. They won't be available to call. You can also use this as a way to make it so they're unavailable at certain parts of the game. Like if you have a time cycle in your game, they could be available to call from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. and from 9 p.m. till 7 a.m. they're not available to call. So that way you can't call them. If you try to call a phone number that does exist when this is off, it actually will call them, but it will just ring for 5 to 7 seconds, I believe, and then hang up. So we're going to go ahead and give him a new phone number. We're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That way we can easily remember that. Okay. In the pop-up dialog, you don't have to worry about changing. That's just a widget here You can actually call an event. I can show you in the base AI. Right here, the spawn pop-up text. And if you call that from anywhere, which it's made to be called from the calling app, you could type in a custom text, a duration, which is the amount of time that it will stay above their head, and the text will show, and it'll also play a sound so you can give them some voice with it. You could also do it without the text if you wanted just sound. That would also work that way. I think that's all we need to do in here for now is just change his phone number. Now as long as he's got a new phone number, we need to go into our cell phone UI folder, and we're going to find the calling calling NW, that's for the mannequin man and mannequin woman. Go ahead and take either one of those and duplicate it. And this one we're going to just call it calling MT for mannequin test. And let's open this up, and it will have the dialog box here and the calling screen for the cell phone. You can set a custom picture for them and change the phone number here. So I'm going to go and change that to 123 123 1234. And if you go into the graph now, what it does here is it tells you if the so first it changes this to say ringing, and it will wait a delay. There's a delay right here, time it takes to answer call. You can set that to any time. You can have a randomized time there so they don't always answer the same speed. It checks if they're close to the player, because if they're close to you, the AI just what I did here is I made it so that it just runs to the player, spawns a pop-up text that says, "Why are you calling me?" and right here, and then it doesn't ever initiate the call, it just hangs up automatically. After the call is answered, it goes into the dialog part. This resets the NPC dialog line to 0, and it changes the words here from ringing to answered. And that's where our functions come in. We have a couple functions here. Play voice from phone. That plays a sound that radiates from the phone in the player's hand. The refresh dialog box macro is what erases the old dialog box and replaces it with the new one. Even though it's the first dialog box, we still refresh it anyway, just in case, I guess. It doesn't need to, but no use to make two different functionalities if it works that way. This here, the format text, the way this is set up, it gets the name from the player character, and so you can type in your own greeting here and it will actually grab the player's name. So if you were, let's say, making a game where the player character at the beginning got to customize their character and name their character, if you had this set up this way, then it would always account for whatever name they chose and it would type that name in there for you. The refresh player's answers does the same thing as the refresh dialog box. The dialog box is this one down here. It's what the AI is saying to you. And the player answers are these two here that are the options the player gets to say back. So first thing it does is it checks if you've talked to already. The way I set up the dialog here, the first thing the AI does is tells them about a new phone. So you could change this to anything related to whatever conversation you create. It could be uh, told about day, you know, told about moving to new house, told about quest, anything really, and it would just check if the player has talked to them that far yet, just in case the player goes halfway through a phone call and hangs up and calls back later. Then you can actually change the dialogue depending on where the player left off talking. So if this is false, that means they have not been told the first part of the conversation yet, so it's going to go ahead and just do a greeting, just as if they're talking to them for the first time. And so we're going to just keep this as saying hello, and the player's answers will be, hey, it's me, and tell them your name, or they can say, sorry, wrong number, bye. And when the answer buttons are clicked, they go into these two collapsed graphs here. If the answer one button is clicked, it goes into this graph and it checks the same conditions so that we know what answers are related to whatever the AI has just told the player. So we'll go ahead and change this just so we can see the difference in a little better. We'll say hi, it's me, Test Mannequin. And if the player says yes to this, so basically this one, the answer 1 will continue the conversation, and answer 2 is set up right now to always end the conversation, but you can change it by just adding more of these answer buttons there. And what these do is these are just like some special conditions that I added in here for the specific conversation. One of the things the player is able to tell them on the third line of dialogue, if they select the second option, they tell the NPC that they don't like their new phone and they're going to throw it at the ground. So that's why it plays montage, throws the phone at the ground, sets visibility. So you can set custom events on each of the answers the player has, whether they continue the call or chose not to continue the call. Then you can set your custom events there. These are all of the events for the second answer from line 1 through line 4. And you could add more lines too to make longer conversations. So we're going to go into the first one. If the player chose to say, hi, it's me, player's name. And we're in the first conversation. We still have not been told anything about the new phone, and we haven't hung up yet. So it's going to go to our first line of dialogue. It'll play the voice from the phone, which is going to be the AI talking. And I just recorded a couple sounds on there when I was making this, just for examples. It's not very good, but they're easily replaced. Just record your own sound, a voice talking whatever is being said right here in the refresh dialog box. Okay, so after they greet the player will, if they continue the conversation with answer 1, they'll have two new options here. The AI will first say, hey, what's up? Because now they know the name, so they say, hey, what's up? Player's name, they tell the player the name. And we're going to change these options here. We're not going to tell us about our new phone. We'll just say, I'm just exploring my new house right now. There's not much to explore in that house. It's completely empty besides a Wi-Fi box. But, oh well. And we'll name this one Just Found Something Cool. Going to check it out. Call you later. And this is where they tell the player if you had chose the answer 1, you'd be brought to the second line of dialogue, which this doesn't need to be there. Can't believe I left that in there. And since we're not telling us about our new phone, we're going to go ahead and just change that. We will say tell about new house. And we'll set that to true because we would have answered yes if we were going to this dialogue line. If you had answered answer 2 here, what that would do is that would bring you to the answer 2 button events, line 2, which has nothing set on it. It would just simply hang up the phone. And at that point, the player hadn't told them anything. They just called them, said hi, said sorry, I've got to go. So if we did tell us about our new house, we would play another line of dialogue. The AI says awesome, now we can call and talk all the time. But also, we should probably clear these, because we don't want it to say something that's not related since we changed these. I'll just say hi, player's name. And instead of that, we'll say, great, I can come over and play video games every day. The hang up event here will just hang up the phone, which it's on all of the answer 2s right now, because like I explained, I just made them short and simple. Answer 2 is just always to hang up. And here we can say, yes, we sure can, about playing video games. And we no longer want to tell our AI about the phone, of course. We're changing our conversation here. So we'll say, I don't really like playing video games with you anymore. Bye. And that'll hang up the phone. And what we can do now is, when we select the answer 2 here, it will take us to the third line in the answer 2 box, the answer 2 collapsed graph here. And instead of telling us about our broken phone, or that we're breaking our phone, we no longer want any of this here, because we don't want the player to throw their phone on the ground anymore, obviously. Oops, I left quite a few print strings in here, my bad. And we'll change this tell broke old phone. Insulted NPC. And then we can change his reactions from then on. If you try to call him back later, he'll be mean to you because he's offended by what you said to him. So we'll set that true. If we did insult him, tell him we don't like to play video games with him anymore, which is a rude thing to say to someone. This game. Okay. This event here looks like I think I changed the wrong Boolean variable. Oh, never mind, I did not. So we're just going to change this told about new house because this is related to this one here. The reason why there's two of them is it double checks it and kind of saves it for the next call so that the AI can remember what was said in the previous call. So you only need to set the ones that are telling them about it, and then so it's kind of like this one is the variable that's set when you're telling them about the action, and this is one that's called for them to kind of remember and know if you had told them that in the past. That's the best way I can try to explain that, so hopefully that makes enough sense like that. Insult. So this should be insult NPC, and when we click this button here saying that we don't like to play video games with them anymore, that's when we set it that it insulted the NPC, and later we'll want to check if we insulted them. So we'll just name this one insulted NPC. So every time you hang up is when it sets these conditions here. When you hang up the phone, it checks and sees which of these you had checked true. So if you went through, you told about new house and insulted the NPC, once you hang up the call, it's going to go and check those, and it's going to set the told about new house and insulted NPC to true. This will stay false, so then the next call, when the NPC answers, it will know that you told about the new house and you insulted them, so it'll go straight to here. If you hadn't insulted them, then it will check if you had told them you'll call back later and play different dialogues from there. And then the answers go through the same check. So your answers just need to match up with the calls. So here we'll say, can I come over and play some video games now? And I'm just going to leave those the same for now so I don't waste any more time. And if you told the player or NPC, yeah, come on over and see it, then they'll say, okay, I'll be right over, or whatever you put there. And then they'll hang up the phone, so they'll hang up right after saying that. That's just the way this is set up. You can always change that to where the player has to actually say bye. I believe the mannequin woman one is set up that way. And what this is it just moves the AI to the player. And when they get to the player, it spawns a pop-up text. It shouldn't really be on fail, because if they don't make it to the player, then it doesn't need to spawn the pop-up text because they never made it to the player. So there must be a problem there why they couldn't make it there. Depending on how your world is, if the NPC can't actually run all the way to the player, then you may need to spawn them close to the player or spawn them behind the control rotation where the player wouldn't see them, and then have them walk toward the player. However you choose to do it. Alright, so let's go ahead and try to call our new AI now. Well, actually, first of all, I'm going to put him in here so that when he runs to us, he can actually make it to us. There's our test mannequin. I'll go outside and call him, because he can't come into the house yet. I did plan on maybe trying to make it to where the AI can come and knock on the door if the player's inside of the house. So they just have to check and see when they were coming to the player, if the player was outside or in their house. So our number was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's one more thing that I did forget. When you add a new NPC with a new phone number, you also need to go into the calling app widget. It's WB Call app. And this is where it checks for the phone numbers. There was another print string here that I meant to erase that I saw on there. Looks like I totally forgot to go through and erase all my print strings. So in the next update I'll also fix that. And here we can just duplicate an entire line here. I'll probably also turn that into a function so it's a bit easier to call it. And it'll look a little nicer that way. And we can erase the MW phone number. You can either, well, actually you've got to make a new variable, so let's just gonna promote this to a variable. We'll name it MT for mannequin test, phone number, and we type in the phone number that we gave the AI. And that was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it checks if the phone number exists. If it does exist, it hides the calling app and it brings up the calling mannequin woman, which we don't want to do there. So now that we had made our new calling MT there, after you make a new widget, you've got to bring it to your main widget. So you open up the main folder, WB Phone Main AI, main UI. Let's find our calling MT app, and we'll just place that on there. Make it not visible so you don't have to look at it. File, save. When you add a new widget on here, make sure you always start them as hidden. And if you're making a new app completely, this is where you would actually just duplicate one of these buttons, and on the buttons on clicked event, you can actually just bring up the widget. You place the new widget you created inside the main phone UI, and that's when you would bring up the widget there just on clicking the button. So it's really simple to make new apps. I'll think of something to create for a tutorial video also. Or if anyone has any ideas for it, bring it up to me and I could use that for the tutorial video. So now we've got that added on here. I think we're good. We did everything we need to. Let's test it out. There we go, calling. Okay, so it looks like it is bringing up the wrong thing. I think I know what I forgot in there actually. I was looking right at it. I didn't change it. When we duplicated this, we left this on the WB calling MW. That's why I went over and added the widget to the main phone UI. because now from the main phone UI here, we can get our calling MT, the new one we just created, and plug those in. From here, you just want to get that event again, start calling, and switch it over. And now it should call our correct NPC. One more thing I believe I forgot though. In the WB calling MT, there's a variable here referencing the NPC that owns the dialog here. And we just want to change this. So the way this is doing it, you need to actually have the NPC in the world so that it can find the NPC. And so we place it in there. Get our mannequin test. And we need to change this to the mannequin test. Change variable type. And let's try hitting file and refresh all nodes. Okay, if that doesn't fix it, you've just got to re-plug these in. They all should just plug in without issues. And right click and refresh. Also just hold control and drag it over. Obviously you could also just erase all of these if you didn't have many events that were telling your AI to go to the player or spawning the pop-up text. I just find it's a bit easier to duplicate it, work from one that's already filled out, and just change it from there. It's a bit easier and quicker than creating a new one. Okay, so now if we try to call our NPC, we should have everything in order now. Okay, one more thing we did forget. When you place a widget in the main phone UI, you want to make sure that you anchor it to the bottom right. There we go. Here we go. Now it gives us our correct phone number there. You can add a picture of the NPC. You can even add the picture through an event in the chat once you find out who it is, once you know the number. So the player's name right now is just set to any name. That's why that came up any name there. And it says, "Hi, it's me, Test Mannequin." We forgot to change the name on the dialog there. Yeah, it should just say Mannequin Test. It's easy to change inside the widget that we created. Calling MT widget. So if we say, "Hey, it's me," they say hi, and then the player's name. We can tell them now I'm just exploring my new house right now, or just found something cool, going to check it out, I'll call you later, and hang up. We'll tell them about our new house, and he says, "Great, can I come over and play video games every day now?" You can say, "Yes, we sure can," or you can say, "I don't really like playing video games with you anymore, bye." And now that would set it, that sets the variable that we insulted him, so it would go to that new line of dialogue there that was after the insulted NPC branch, which we did not change anything there yet. So if I do it, it's just going to bring up the old stuff. And that was telling the player about the broken phone. So now he's going to think that we broke our phone just because we didn't change the dialogue there. But all you would have had to do is change that to something like well, why are you calling me after what you said to me? I don't know. Just anything related to the last conversation they had. We'll do it real quick just as a quick example. So if we insulted the NPC, true. So all of the greetings are out here in the main page, not in the answers. Take it off. So instead of saying you got a new phone already, you say, why are you calling me? I hate you now. You can change the amount of time it takes until the answers pop up also. Right here, time until answers appear. I'll say I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. And you can go on from there to apologize, end up setting another boolean there where it says you apologize to the AI. You can change the dialog further from there. Or you can just tell them, sorry, wrong number, bye. We'll say, oh yeah, I forgot I hate you also. See ya. I think I was clicking on stuff a little too fast there, my thing froze. We'll tell them about our house. That way the video game dialogue will come up. We're going to tell them, no, we don't like playing video games with you anymore. And we'll call them back. There's a thing here that happened, and I know how to fix it. I'm going to go ahead and fix it for the next update. I put something in there to clear the numbers, and I forgot to plug all the numbers in. I just plugged the last one in, so it just clears the last one every time now. But I'll fix that. And just to type that last number back in there. Now we should be angry at us for insulting him, but not liking to play video games. Yep, tells us he hates us now. We say sorry, we're going to say, oh yeah, I forgot, bye, and just hang fun. So that should explain enough how to create new NPCs with new numbers and create a little dialogue for them. This is a gallery that I'm working on for the camera. So hopefully that should be able to be finished soon. Alright, so I hope that helps out. Thank you, and goodbye.